What is up, guys? My name is Brian Story and welcome to your fourth tutorial on building a web server. In this tutorial, we're going to install our processor and our memory onto the motherboard. So let's start with our processor. So the processor comes in a little case like this, which is pretty nice. And we'll just pop this open a little bit. Take it out. You'll see what's nice about these processors, this i5 right here, is that it has a pinless design. So if you're familiar with how processors usually are, they usually have a bunch of pins sticking out. If by chance you're dealing with a processor like that, make sure that you don't bend any of those pins or touch them. Matter of fact, always handle the processor kind of like this by grabbing the edges. It's the best way to do it. Okay, put that away. Let's prepare our motherboard for inserting the processor. So, we have this little toggle here, and what I recommend you doing is push it down, pull it out, it'll pop open when it's spring loaded, so it'll pretty much fly open. What you want to do is pull it back, it'll unlock the latch, and just so you know how much pressure to put on this thing, I would recommend putting it back down. You'll notice it'll take a little bit of force here, push this thing down. So don't be alarmed by that. Now on here we have a little bit of a note card. You want to just pull that out. All it says is, hey, this goes here. So if you don't have a processor here, replace it with this. And this keeps this clean. It's kind of nice. So we won't need that anymore. Anyway, let's take our processor out of this plastic casing. Still holding it by here. Now on this particular processor there are two notches, one on the left and one on the right, and there's also a little arrow key. Now what I noticed on this motherboard is there's not an arrow where the processor should go, and it's a square processor, so you don't want to put it in sideways or backwards. You want to make sure it goes in the right way, and there is a right way to put this in. So if you pop this latch back over, there's an arrow right here that lines up with the arrow on the processor. But in case you don't see that, there are two notches on the socket here. That this processor, sorry about that, I'm still having a hard time talking tonight. This processor only goes in one way. So line up the notches and just drop it in. Don't force it in. Just drop it in. And if you don't think that it's in properly, just pick it back out, put it back in, like that. And you'll know if it's in there. You should definitely know. It should feel flush around the edges. Anyway, when that's in there properly, put this latch back down. Make sure you get it behind this little bolt thing here, if you can see that, and pull this down. Like I said, it's going to take a little bit of force. Push it in there and you're good to go. Now all we have to do is install our heatsink. So the thing to know about these heatsinks clip in with these 4 clips, and you want to make sure that if they're turned to the right, that they have to be turned the right way to clip in. And how do you know? Well, let's see. I'm not really sure. I guess. Okay, so that's the deal. There's a little notch in here that you want to make sure it's on the right spot. So it should clip in when you rotate it. And actually there's little arrows on here now that I look. You might not be able to see them on the camera, but there's little arrows here. You want to make sure that if the arrows are pointed in, you want to reverse them. Point them out. Okay, so the next thing to consider when putting this on is this plug right here. And this plug has to plug into the CPU fan sys on the motherboard. So however you mount this fan, there's not really a wrong way to do it, other than if this cable is stretched too much. You want to make sure that this cable with this heatsink doesn't touch this fan, because it'll stop it, it'll slow it down. So these wires are tied into the sides here, just so it doesn't interact with that fan. Because if it starts hitting that fan, it stops that fan, your processor will overheat. So we want to do it like this, where this just clips in nice and loosely. Now on my processor heatsink, I don't have any paste on here. Now what this paste stuff is like heatsink paste. How do I describe that? It's a special bonding to the processor to transfer the heat from the processor to the heatsink. It makes sure that all the cracks that are naturally in metal when this thing is actually being built get filled in so the contact is smooth. Now I don't have any heatsink paste on here, so I'm gonna go ahead and apply some. My friend picks this stuff up in bulk, so he gives it to me like anytime I need it, and I just happen to have some laying around. I'm gonna need some scissors, I think. Let's see. Okay, so I don't have any scissors to open this up. I'm gonna use a pen. There we go. And I'll rip the rest of it. Now this stuff is toxic, so if you get some on your hands like I just did, wash it off the next chance you get, and don't eat it. If you eat this stuff, you will probably suffer. At least your kids will suffer, so don't do it. Now you don't have to put too much on here if you're ever applying this stuff. You really just gotta put like a few drops. Like that. It's like a pea size, and that will be good enough for this. Now, give you an idea, it's like about that much, and that might even be a little too much, but that's alright. Like, it's not gonna hurt anything if it's too much, as long as it's not pouring off the side of the processor and like getting into any of that stuff. Like, that's probably just enough of too much. So let's see. This is what we want to do, is we want to put it in like this, line it up with those holes, and now that it's lined up with the holes, you want to press 2 of these in, and you'll hear like a click. I didn't hear a click on that one actually, but it still went in, so good deal. Heard a click there. It's a silent click. Okay, so 2 of these made loud clicks, 2 of them made silent clicks. But, I mean, when I try to push these up, like, they're not coming up, so we're good. Now, this fan can only go in one way, and that is because it has a little, like, notch in here that will clip into the motherboard. So we're going to do that. Make sure that those pins are lined up. And like I said, I'm plugging this into the CPU fan sys. You want to definitely make sure you locate that on the motherboard. So there, our processor is successfully installed, and we're good to go. Now let's install the memory. So the thing about the memory is this is dual channel memory. That's why we have blue, white, blue, white. We want to install both of our memory sticks into one of these colors. Now the one that I'm going to install it in, which is what the manual says to do, is the blue one. So let's just pop the memory out, one stick at a time. And now, on the memory stick itself, there's a set of long pins and a set of short pins, and it kind of shows you the direction that the memory goes in on the board. So if you can see this, there's a short slot and a long slot, and you can just look at it, you know, I mean, you'll be able to tell, like, for sure if that's wrong. Like, you can see there's a little notch in here. It has to go into that notch. So we'll just pop this in. And these pins are out right now. And as I push this memory stick in, like, those pins automatically clip the memory into place. So don't worry about giving it a little bit of force to do that. I mean, typically it takes it. It scares me sometimes because the motherboard seems to bend when you do this. But that stick went in really easy. And what I usually do is just flip these ones that I'm not using up. Why not, right? Keep it clean. So that's the installation of our processor and our memory. The next video, we're going to cover the power supply, putting the power supply into the case, and plugging it into the motherboard. So subscribe, Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.